Hey guys, what's up? Jdose back here with another Vikings video, and it's time to talk about the position battles you need to be looking out for as preseason comes into a couple of months. So let's get to it.
Skol Vikings, let's win this game. Skol Vikings, honor your name.
Alright guys, so let's start off on the offensive side of the ball. One of the guys that was a restricted free agent we just re-signed, Adam Thielen for Stefon Diggs, who's the Vikings' #1 receiver. So this one's going to be interesting. So let's look at this, and let's look at their stats, and let's start with Adam Thielen. He's got 69 receptions last year for 967 yards. He got 14 yards on average, and he got 5 touchdowns. And one thing that's also really nice about Thielen is that he didn't miss a single game. Stefon Diggs, we'll look into a moment, had some injuries along the way, but that helped Adam Thielen get more catches just more yards and more touchdowns than Diggs. Now let's look at Diggs' numbers. He had 84 receptions, 903 yards, a 10.8 average, and 3 touchdowns. So Adam Thielen beat Diggs out in all but total receptions. He beat him in all the other categories. But like I said, Diggs missed 3 games last year, and that's his whole detriment as a receiver. As we can see, he can really go off as he torched the Packers week 2 for 182 yards. He got 164 against the Redskins, and that is really it for his big plays. He had 100 yards again week 1. So when he's the guy that we need to count on, he can come through, but he's pretty splashy when he gets his numbers. So do you want the more consistent Adam Thielen that will stay healthy and get you more touchdowns, or do you want a guy like Stefon Diggs that'll make guys miss? When he's hot, he's extremely good. He's consistently making that first guy miss, gaining 5 yards after the carry. It's really fun to watch. He's really good when you have offensive line troubles as well, because we can just have him do those short passes and get the couple extra yards, get the first down. But this is what I want to say about Stefon Diggs. Missing those 3 games, if you would have played those games, averaging 10 yards a carry, would put him right around their 100 reception mark and 1,000 yards on the season mark as well. So I think that's enough to push him as the Vikings' true #1 guy. But this is a really good situation for the Vikings to be in, as they haven't had a legit #1 receiver since Brett Favre and Sidney Rice for that 1 year. Or if you want to go back for a consistent #1 guy, you'd have to go all the way back to Randy Moss. So this is a really good situation for the Vikings to be in, as they've have their best #1 and #2 receivers in years. So let's stay with the wide receiver position and move to wide receiver #3. Since the departure of Charles Johnson and former #1 overall pick Cordell Patterson, we have a position open for the #3 spot. Now this can be filled up with one of 2 guys. It could really be 3. We'll probably draft a guy as well. We might pick up a guy in free agency. Antoine Bolden would be a nice pick to get some of our young guys some little toughness in them. But the guys that we have on the roster right now that would be the most likely to get it would be last year's first pick in the draft, Laquan Treadwell, and Jarius Wright, a little bit of a forgotten guy, but you do think he's really good too. Let's look at Laquan Treadwell. Of course, a very disappointing year last year, only getting the 1 reception for 15 yards. The coaches say he was hurt. Let's look at looking at his game logs. He only played in a handful of games. He didn't start at all, so he doesn't have a lot of time to really be that #1 guy. We didn't really give him the chance because we didn't give him the snaps. I don't know if that was due to injury or not going in the playbook. From what I hear, it's a combination of the both. So you have to give Laquan Treadwell a nod because he's the #1 talent. We know we need him, and we need a guy with his size, 6'2", 215 pounds. If we compare him outside, we have Thielen on the outside, and Diggs can be in his absolute best where he is in the slot. That's the most ideal thing for the Vikings. But looking at Jarius Wright, he's a really good threat as well. His best year was in 2014, where he played in all 16 games, had 42 receptions for 588 yards. That is a really good number 3 receiver numbers. And if we could get that, if I'm fine with Jerry's Right being the 3 or 4, but I just really like the idea of Treadwell being that number 3 guy, can be outside with Diggs because he would help our team better. And let's face it, where the Vikings are now, our future success is on the backs of our young core guys like Laquan Treadwell, Trey Waynes, Danielle Hunter, Eric Kendricks. Those guys have to be very successful for our team going forward for the Vikings to get any better. So out of these two, I think I made my point obvious. I really want to see Laquan Treadwell get the spot, but if he can't get the playbook down, let's go to Jdose Right. But as of now, I think the Vikings have a higher thought on our boy Laquan Treadwell. So that's it for offense. You can look at the right tackle position. There's who's going to win the center position, Nick Easton or Joe Berger. I think Joe Berger is obviously the better one, but I'd like to see Berger go to right guard. But there we have it. That's our offense. Now let's go to the defensive side of the ball and talk about a position where you guys were talking about on my last video. You can make sure to comment on that down below. And that is the Brian Robinson versus Danielle Hunter battle at the left defensive end. So stat-wise, it's an absolute no-brainer. Danielle Hunter's got it in the cake. 56 tackles, 12.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. To Brian Robinson, 28 tackles, 7.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles in a full starting role. So Danielle Hunter absolutely dominated last season. I know the Vikings, Mike Zimmer, all the coaches are extremely high on Brian Robinson's leadership, but Danielle Hunter's talent alone has earned him the starting spot. There's no reason to keep him on the bench any longer. He doesn't get injured. He's always a force out there. I think this is a guy that could be something like the next Von Miller, just being a D end, or you can talk about former Vikings Jared Allen. He could go after that Michael Strahan record, and we could have one of those seasons again, but hopefully we'll be winning this time around. So I think Danielle Hunter easily deserves that spot. Will he get it? I think it's more or less a flip of a coin. Maybe Brian Robinson will start the first 4 games or so, then Danielle Hunter will start the rest of the game. But B-Rob will still be in the mix, being on the third down and long package, and he'll still sub in every now and again, as he's still on that reduced deal for the next 2 seasons that I covered in that video as well. So look forward to maybe towards the end of the year, 60-40 split with Danielle Hunter, getting the nod for more touches or more snaps. But next year, it's got to be about 80-20. Danielle Hunter needs to be on the field as much as possible. And as many more snaps as he get is the better for the Vikings and their defense. So let's move on to the last position battle we got here. And that is the cornerback number 2 position. This one is a little bit interesting. Terrence Newman has had this baby sealed up the last couple of years, and he has given no indication that his age is getting to him whatsoever. The NFL site has him listed at 38 years old. So here's the thing, like I said earlier, this is our team's future is hanging on guys like Trey Waynes to come up and be the next big thing for the Vikings. So let's look at stats. Terrence Newman, of course, started 38 tackles, which tackles can be a little misleading for a corner. That usually means your guy gets a completion, then you tackle him. 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, 1 interception. For Trey Waynes, 50 tackles. Like I said, it could be a little misleading. I think he also played special teams, so that's why he's going to get all his tackles. But he got 3 interceptions on the year in a reduced role. That looks really good for a guy. He did start towards the beginning of the year when Xavier Rhodes was hurt, but that looks good. He has intercepted some really good quarterbacks in the past, Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson in the playoff game last year, or in 2015. Or 2016, I'm sorry. But I think Terrence Newman, it could be this one could be another interesting one. It could be a split, but I think Zimmer's going to try to push Trey out there as much as possible. He needs to get ready to be a starter in the NFL. We didn't pick him to be the number 3 guy. He's going to be the starter eventually, and I think 2017 is as good as ever to get him over the edge. So as far as talent-wise, it's obviously Terrence Newman. He's one of the smartest receivers in the league because he's been there forever. But Trey Waynes absolutely needs to be there and get the snaps. Again, will this be kind of like the B-Rob versus Danielle Hunter situation? I think it could be kind of like that. But I think Zimmer might push for Trey as early as possible. And it's going to be interesting to see where they do in training camp, because we're really going to see where they're going to tip their hand to see who's higher on the depth chart in preseason. So it's months away. We haven't even been on the draft yet. There'll be more position battles to come. But these are the main ones of the players on the roster currently. So one position battle I didn't cover in this video because I already kind of covered it. And that is a healthy Teddy Bridgewater versus Sam Bradford. If you guys want to know my thoughts on that, make sure you click on the link in the description. It'll be annotated in just a few moments. But anyways, I'm Jdose. We'll see you guys in the next Jdose Vikings video. See ya.